Alright guys, this is going to be a recap of the UNI game this past Saturday against Western Illinois, and then looking ahead to this Saturday's game in Springfield, Missouri, taking on Missouri State, which is coming off a demoralizing loss of their own against Illinois State, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Alright, so this is a lot. Normally I would break this down just drive by drive, but because this game, just as a spoiler, if you didn't already see the score, was such a blowout, it was 50-6. I'm going to leave this here if you want to read through it. Otherwise, we're just going to break down real quick what happened. And I'm looking at ESPN Plus stats. So, first drive for UNI, 5 plays, 70 yards, a touchdown. I kind of touch on it here in my little summary, but you've got a nice run by Pesic Hickson to set it up. Theo has basically a 30-yard pass to Schnee. Pesic Hickson has another 10-yard run, and then you find Sergio Morency, and I jokingly compared him to Brady McCullough, who had a nice back of the end zone touchdown, but that's the kind of grab that Morency had that put it 7-0. WIU gets the ball, 3 plays, no yards, punt. UNI gets the ball, and we're cruising. We've got a couple runs by Pesic Hickson. We've got a pass to Liam McComas. I apologize because I don't see his name super often, so if I'm mispronouncing it. And then we have Jaden Ellis-Leahy, 30-yard grab. Looking like Morency in the last game, getting a huge grab and then just fumbling it after a big chunk play. Luckily, WIU showed that they were incompetent offensively. They had a couple, drive at the end of the game just to prevent the shutout, but for the majority of the game, they couldn't do anything. So even though they get the fumble recovery, 3 plays, 0 yards. From there, we get the ball back. I'm trying to see actually what's going on here. You know what? So we fumble, then they fumble, which sets us up it's a 6-yard score by Pesic Hickson, 14-0. So there you go. Now WIU gets the ball back, 7 plays, 32 yards. So they actually were able to sustain some positive yardage, but then they turn the ball over on downs. We get the ball back. I'm just looking here to see if there's anything noteworthy. Looks like Schnee had a nice 12-yard grab on that drive here. Logan Wolf had a 40-yard snag. And then we have Alex Allen, 2 yards for a touchdown. We're up 21-0. WIU, they get the ball at the 1. After this is when they're super short. Jay Parker, the number 1, just 5'5" in the program. He may even be smaller. He tries to do a fair catch, and he screws it up. I didn't actually see exactly what he did, but it looks like he didn't do it properly according to the ref call. So then they, instead of a fair catch, bringing him up, to the 20, right, 25, he's down at the 1. WIU predictably can't get anything generating on offense. They do the punt. They butcher the punt. It's a safety. The free kick goes to us, and then at that point, we march down the field, 8 plays, 58 yards for the score on that drive. Looks like Morency had a nice 21-yard grab. Schnee had a 12-yard grab. Pesic Hickson has a 5-yard run, a 6-yard run, and then he scores. So we're at 30-0, and the game is already out of hand. So just kind of running real quick what happens next. WIU punts. We get a field goal. WIU punts again. Then we punt. The half ends. It's 33-0 thanks to Cook's field goal. To start the second half, it looks like WIU got picked off. They were intercepted. I want to say it was Langenberg was the guy who picked it off. And then we take advantage of the pick, set up Ty Edwards, who takes the first carry for 29 yards. I love to see that. I know that Edwards got a lot of run with the game so out of hand late. Pesic Hickson got even though he had a crazy productive game, I believe he had about 70 yards. So he was able to take advantage of maybe what ended up being, just a half of a day. He got 2 touchdowns, 70 yards, and he only had a couple, I want to say a dozen carries or so. We'll break down the numbers in a second. But at that point, it's 40-0. I'll just run through real quick. WIU, 7 plays, 5 yards, turned over on downs. This one was interesting because they turned it over on downs at their 39. So we got phenomenal field position. 4 plays, 30 yards. It's Aiden Dunn finding Brady McCall. This was a crazy play. This was one of those he's down there somewhere, throws the pass. Brady McCall catches it, sideline going crazy. WIU then punts. We go 16 plays, 79 yards for a field goal. This one was a little frustrating. Josh Jenkins got a little run in that. Aiden Dunn was running. Aiden Dunn finished with also probably about a dozen runs. I know at the end that we were just struggling to get into the end zone. We were really close, and then Josh Jenkins just couldn't pop it in, so we ended up getting Matthew Cook on a 28-yard field goal that brings the score to 50-0. And then WIU has a 15-play drive for how many yards? 75 yards. So it was a legitimate drive. They scored. They missed the extra point, which even though I was in kind of a odd angle sitting at the game, it looked like the ball went in. It looked like the extra point was actually good, but it doesn't really matter. So, all right, moving on to these are just offensive stats. Again, not as concise as normal because this game was at one point kind of a throwaway, but Day just 12 for 16. Aiden Dunn then took over, so he and you know what? Let me give you Aiden's stats here since I have it pulled up. Aiden was for passing, he passed 3 for 4, 50 yards. Rushing, however, he was 6 rushes. I said a dozen rushes, so half a dozen rushes for 31 yards with a long of 12. So not bad. Ty led us yard-wise in touches, but I like how him and Pesek Hickson got the same amount of carries. As you can see, Hickson's average was phenomenal, 6.1, and then Edwards had that nice 29-yard long, which was his touchdown. Schnee and Wolf combined for 100. Each have over 50, 6 catches total. And Morency had kind of his normal stat sheet, which is maybe just a few targets or a few catches, but that one chunk play, and he scored. Defensively, Langenberg, 6 tackles, 5 solo, which was nice. What I liked is that you could see him on the sideline just getting super juiced when other reserves were getting into the game. Speaking of reserve, Caleb Frazier came up. Same stat line as Langenberg, which is pretty remarkable, and then 1.5 tackles for a loss. So I also don't want to kind of shy over Langenberg. 1 pick, 3 tackles for loss, and he played maybe 3 quarters. So if that. Wu has 4 solo tackles, 2 for a loss. Belkin is back, who I hadn't seen as much. It was nice to see some faces we maybe had forgotten about a little bit. Broderick Calhoun, I know we hadn't seen since the Iowa State game for the most part. And then Warren Peebles had a nice 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. So, preview in Missouri State. I bring up Terrell Owens in here because on Twitter he apparently was watching the game. This was a crazy game that got down to the last play against Illinois State. The guy catches the ball in the end zone for a 2-point conversion, but he drops it, and he thinks he dropped it. But the refs review the play, and they actually give him the conversion, even though he admits that he thought he dropped it. So it just was one of those where you watch it, it fails the eyeball test. Just doesn't look like he converted it. But they gave him the points. They gave ISU the win. So you know Missouri State is going to be at least there's some motivation there if there wasn't already. Some guys to maybe look at. And as a preview, they seem to have a dynamic offense. You have Wright, who had 2 touchdowns, under 80 yards, but he can get into the end zone. And then I guess I said that his scores were short, which is reflective of a game that was close. Missouri State has the ability to hang in games. They're not going to blow like in this game where Northern Iowa got up to such a big lead that it almost didn't matter. They just had to sustain their lead. Missouri State was, going blow for blow, and they just couldn't pull it off. And then Raylan Sharp, who we saw last year, if anyone Watched the game against or UNI against Missouri State last year. Raylan Sharp played. He was on the team last year, and he went 7 for 105 for 2 scores. He's having a phenomenal season. I list his other stats: 8 for 109 against Youngstown, 13 for 153 against North Dakota State. But only 1 score before today's game, so it's not like he's a huge end zone threat. I mean, that may be changing. Maybe just going with momentum. They blew out Western like we did, 48-7. I mean, it's almost an identical score to 50-6. They do have a few bad losses. I know they double-digit losses to the Bison and Youngstown, but I mean, we played Youngstown. We know they're good. And then they played UT Martin, who is, if not the best, I mean, they may get out of the OVC Big South for the automatic bid. As far as I know, I don't follow that league that closely. But all right, guys, that'll be all for this one. I'll catch you on the next one.